You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
Packers Talk.
Welcome to the Packers Weekly Podcast, part of PackersTalk.com network. I am your host, Miles Teddick, joined by your co-host, Tim Hamilton. We are just some diehard Packers fans that love talking about the Pack. We are not getting into all the national media distractions and nonsense that they deal with all the time. We are sticking to the top topics around the Pack each and every week, breaking down games during the season. And of course, now in the offseason, we are sorting through all the little bits and morsels of real football that we can get. If y'all love this podcast, want to support the podcast, please spike that like button for us. Most importantly, jump on over to the Packers Talk Network YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, a little bell next to it for those notifications, let you know when we're streaming live. We would certainly appreciate it. A couple clicks away for you and a very, very big deal for us. So thank you guys. Love y'all subscribers and listeners for joining us. We have tonight our 100th episode. Tim, we've done 100 episodes. What is going on here, man? Didn't we just start this thing yesterday? Holy crap.
It sure seems like a wow. Yeah.
So, we got a special guest joining us for this 100th episode. Somebody who actually had a hand in creating this whole mess here that we've started. But
you
first,
can blame him.
Yeah, you can. If you've got any complaints, direct them in his direction. But of course you don't. Before we can have some fun here, we, of course, have to take care of business. And that doesn't mean that can't be fun either. Our show is once again sponsored by Wisconsin's own Ticket King. For over 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packers fans, as well as Bucks tickets, Brewers tickets, Summerfest tickets, all those things. Get them, check them out. Summerfest coming up. You can find them on the web at theticketking.com. Or, of course, visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. Remember, support your local Wisconsin businesses. And if you're not in Wisconsin, support your local businesses. All right. So, Tim, good evening, sir. 100 episodes. How you feeling about it?
Good evening. Happy 100th.
Yeah. Happy 100th to you.
Feeling grateful. I mean, this is incredible. Look, when we did our first one, I was just hoping we could make it to a second one.
Yeah, right.
And here we are at 100. We're going into our third. It'll be our third season. It'll be Jordan Love's third season as a starter. So I guess we do this as long as he's the starting quarterback until he gets traded to the Jets.
Yeah, we got a few years before that happens, you know.
Yeah, so I mean that's the way it's got to be, right? But I mean, incredibly grateful, and it's just unbelievable to me that I, personally, that I could be doing this now for 100 episodes. I never would have imagined, but it's been awesome. Just been a privilege to talk to you every Monday night and to share our thoughts on this team that we all love and live and die for. So yeah, this is awesome. Happy 100.
I couldn't have said it better, my friend. Absolutely. It's definitely been a privilege, and hopefully we've got hundreds more and maybe a few Super Bowls to cover in there too. That'd be kind of fun.
That would be awesome.
We got a couple friends showing up here in the comments. Bill says, good evening, gents. Happy 100. Thank you, sir. Bill, thank you for being with us again on this Monday. We enjoy you being with us. We got Michael Redden with us. Congrats, guys. Appreciate you, Michael. Michael's bringing some optimism and another comment there with what he's thinking about coming into training camp. But without further ado, our special guest that we have joining us here this evening, Sir Jersey Al. How are we doing? Thank you so much for joining us, Al.
Hello, gents. Happy 100th.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
you. I mean, you're responsible for this.
What? Well, no, you're responsible. I just sent you off, and you did it from there. But I got you started. But no, it's been fun watching you guys from episode 1 to episode 100, and how you've progressed and developed, and the rapport that you've, I think, you've joined together since the first episode. The first couple episodes just kind of feeling each other out. That's normal. But now you guys are like right on point. So I am impressed, and I think you're doing a great job. So
Thank you.
Oh,
Good to
thank
be
you,
with
sir.
you.
Appreciate you. All right. Oh, hey, maybe we can do this podcasting thing for a little bit. We'll see.
I'm just trying to make it to episode 101.
There you go.
One at a time. Man.
Just like the Packers, one game at a time. We are just one podcast at a
One
time.
podcast at a time.
That's it.
Yes, exactly. One
We
podcast
learn
at a
from
time.
Coach LaFleur.
Yes, right. So I mean, now, all right. So let's dive in then. You know,
What do you want to talk about?
we're I mean, the name of the episode. You got to bring your optimism today. How bright can the future be? I mean, I'm wearing the sunglasses. I'm not taking them off because of how bright the future is. So Al, I mean, what do you think? How bright can the future be for this 2025 season?
Well, you talk about optimism, and I've got a dichotomy going in my life, in my personality. I'm an optimist at heart, but I'm also a dead set realist. So I always have those two things.
Tough things to coexist sometimes.
Yeah, it is. That's why it's a dichotomy. My probably realism came first. I remember my high school humanities teacher in my yearbook wrote, Al, our class realist. Whenever we got out too far in the weeds, you brought us back into reality. So she had me pegged from the beginning. But I think over the years, I really became more optimistic about just things in general, not just the Packers, just life and whatnot. And so that's what I have going. As far as the Packers, okay, so I'm optimistic that they're good enough to make it to the Super Bowl, but realistically, I feel like certain things have to happen for them to get there, right? One thing that I think that they need is they need more Pro Bowl players, Pro Bowl capable players, right? I mean, I think last year they had it was Gary, Jacobs, and McKinney, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
I think the three of them were named to the Pro Bowl. You need more than that. You need, and not just because they made the Pro Bowl, you need those impact players, the ones that are going to impact the game, right? So they've got people on the roster who are capable. I mean, Edgerrin Cooper, I mean, he's got the whole world in front of him. I think he's capable.
I hear all pro whispers around that man.
Sorry?
I'm hearing all pro whispers around him right now.
Well, I'm starting with Pro Bowl. I'm not going to all pro yet. One step at a time. Jordan Love, right? He's got all the tools. He's got everything he needs to get there. If we can get our quarterback to a Pro Bowl level, well, hell, that helps us a lot, doesn't it? Right? That helps our chances. Some other players I'd like to see, maybe Tucker Kraft, take that next step. There's been a lot of talk about him, no doubt, this offseason, and there's a lot of optimism around him, but I'd like to see him take that step. Maybe Zach Tom, we all think he's at that level, but he didn't make the Pro Bowl last year. So let's get him signed to an extension. Let's get him to be one of the top two right tackles, in the game of football. Other guys, maybe Elton Jenkins moving to center. Let's see if we can get him onto a Pro Bowl. And when I say let's see if we can, obviously I mean let's see if they can do it, right?
Well, we've got some will involved here, right?
Well, we can wish it, but other than that, and maybe Kenny Clark. Let's get it. How about a little resurgence from Kenny Clark, right? I think I named like six players that I think we'd all agree they all have that potential. If they could do it, if they can all come to that level, add it on to the other players that the Packers have, the good players, and I think we've got a good shot. If they're just, what they've been so far and don't take that next step, then it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, it feels like this is where they've been stuck. Maybe not even just last year, but I even feel like kind of at the end of Rodgers' career is this, all right, you've reloaded, you got some good potential, and then certain important pieces underperform or disappoint, get injured, whatever it may be, and you end up with those costly holes you just can't overcome. So yeah, I appreciate the realism. I mean, I'm definitely, my optimism is pretty high right now, pretty high. And I gotta give Tim some credit because you're usually the in-house realist, I think, between the two of us. So, I mean, what is your
Yeah.
realistic perspective on this?
So I think Al makes a good point in that a lot's got to go right for them, but I think it's similar kind of to their 2010 team. So like in my lifetime, I've seen 2 Super Bowl championships. 96, you could see that team coming. That was a freight train. They didn't need a whole lot to go right. They needed health and to get through the Cowboys. They didn't have to go through the Cowboys, but they would have had them at Lambeau and they would have went through them that year. Other than that, they needed health and they mostly had that. But that team you could see coming. 2010, you kind of like they were still pretty young. They were new to the playoffs with Rodgers. At
And
least
they
from
were
my
even a 6th seed, so even going into the playoffs, it's not like they were striking fear in the opponents.
right, and they were a beat up team. I mean, they went through tons of injuries all year, but some of the injuries ended up like uncovering Desmond Bishop. You know, you got better players from that, and you had younger players, B.J. Raji, you know, guys like that stepped up for you and became significant
Sam
contributors. Sam Shields was one that they discovered. Like there were a ton of them go down. You know, they had contributions by guys like Charlie Pepra became a serviceable safety.
Yeah.
But that team, they needed things to go right, and then they faced that adversity with all the injuries, and they overcame it, and it kind of built them to be the team that they ended up being at the end of the season. I think this team's more similar to that in that I agree they need a lot to go right for them, but I think they have the pieces. They just haven't gotten to that level. And to me, it starts with Jordan Love, because if you have a Pro Bowl or All Pro quarterback, that makes everything else so much better on your team. And I think like the struggle we saw with Rodgers is he was at that level, but the defense let him down, right? And special teams, and there were other factors, but they at least have that baseline now in defense where I don't think it's going to let them down. Like I think they're going to be a good defense, whether they're top 5, top 10 or whatever. I don't think they're going to be, you know, some of those down years where it was Rodgers carrying the team on his back because he just didn't have that support. Jordan Love's going to have the support. And if he plays the way he's capable, what we saw him do second half of 2023, that just makes so many things better for this team. It makes them, a top offense in this league that's going to be tough for any defense to stop. And then when you can play defense on the other side of the ball, it's there for them. They just now have to have that growth and take the next step. And the frustrating part is like, it might've been there last year and there were so many guys that just didn't take the next step. So can they now do that with a lot of the same players? Can they, improve themselves and some of the additions they made? That's where it's at. But I think the talent on the roster at least is there and the capability is there. It's just, can it break right for them?
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think they've built a nice deep roster. It's deep. Somebody goes down, they've got players to come in or they're going to perform well. But can we have those stars, those impact guys that are going to make the difference in those tight games? So, and like Tim, as you were saying, it's got to come from the existing players. They did go out and make some moves. Okay, not earth-shattering moves. They weren't Xavier McKinney, Josh Jacob type moves, but those guys weren't there at reasonable prices, right? So they built depth there, and they did the same thing with the draft. They tried to draft an impact player with their first pick, right? Historic picks, pretty much a wide receiver. So they're trying to find those impact players, I feel, but for the most part, like Tim said, it's got to come from the guys that were there last year.
Yeah,
they've got to step up.
I agree. I agree with Bill here too. Love has to be in the MVP conversation to make it to the Super Bowl. I'm optimistic about that, and I think as we kind of make comparisons a little bit to the past, I agree. You need those Pro Bowl type players, but I think you do need that alpha leader on each side of the ball, which obviously Aaron. Back in 2010, 2011 was leading that offense, no problem. And you obviously had Chuck Woodson on the other side, along with some other pretty talented folks. I guess my question is, I think, unequivocally, it's Jordan Love on the offensive side of the ball as far as who the captain and leader and all that needs to be. And I think, Josh Jacobs and there's some other guys around there that can help contribute to that. But who's that guy on the defense? There's no Chuck Woodson. You don't have like a legendary figure like that. Who is that guy, do you think?
I think it's McKinney, just based on last year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is
and
he
I
a
think
guy that you feel like he can compete for that defensive player of the year, kind of the way Chuck Woodson was doing in his prime?
yeah, I
Well,
think
stop comparing people to Charles Woodson.
I mean, he
That's a
not
big
necessarily a
ask,
Hall of
right?
Fame player, but he was in his prime during that time, and he was competing to be the best
Yeah.
player in the league or defensive player in the league. You know, is there a guy on this roster that can be potentially one of the best defensive players in the league?
Well, I think, as Tim alluded to, I think it's McKinney. I mean, he was named team captain at a very young age with the Giants, right? So he's got that locker room presence, to be a leader. And on the field, we saw him be a leader. Again, I think of anybody on that defense, I've got to go with McKinney. I can't think of one other person I would pick.
I think it's McKinney from the leadership perspective and like what he's already accomplished. But I think like the breakout potential superstar, kind of different position, different role than Clay Matthews. But like the modern Clay Matthews would be Edgerrin Cooper. Like
For
he
sure.
could be that
Yeah.
star player.
We don't know about leadership, from him
Right.
yet, but certainly the one player they have on this team that could really break out and just be a special player is going to be Cooper.
And that's the one I was wondering if y'all would bring up, because and he's obviously still so young, but he does seem like the potential is sky high for him. I'm excited, and I'll say I really hope he stays healthy. The one problem with Clay Matthews was his style of play was so reckless. He had a hard time staying healthy, but when he did, man, he and again he got Charles Woodson. There was a lot of great figures on that Super Bowl defense. But to your point, Al, you need more than just a dude. You need several guys that are really making an impact, not just contributing or starting or surviving, whatever it may be. I mean, I guess I'm as optimistic as I've been. Last season felt like, it could be good, but it also felt like, the year before, kind of thing. It's like, yeah, you'll make the playoffs, maybe, make a run to the playoffs, but it didn't feel like you had enough depth necessarily to me last year that, to really have those Super Bowl aspirations. And I think on this show, we had some fun and say, oh, they're going to make it to the Super Bowl. I love doing that. But I mean, in this season, it really feels like now you got to consider your Super Bowl window open. That doesn't necessarily to me mean you hit it in year one, but I think you got to consider it open, because right now I just don't see a glaring hole. I mean, you've got everything down to the kicker pretty well covered. And last year even the kicker was a little bit in question going into it, but you got that stabilized now. Obviously your quarterback situation is as stable as it gets in the NFL. Your defense, I think, is the biggest thing, where you've got these guys now that have been more consistent than probably the guys that you were looking at as leaders in the recent past. Right. And so that's what I get really excited about, and having a McKinney being that guy, whereas, Jair obviously is a recent exit. And I think for a few years, he was probably one of the top dogs in that room. I think it's fair to say, and maybe not the best leader, and now you maybe have a different brand of leader in that room that could yield some different results. But there was a lot of turmoil. We don't have to go into the past because there's other factors involved there too. I'm just very excited about what I'm hearing. One of the things that gets me a little bit more excited about this defense, and kind of unexpectedly, was listening to Isaiah Simmons. Al, I'm curious about your thoughts. Did you get to hear what he had to say recently in his interview?
Yes.
So what do you think? Do you think he can still be that guy that was drafted 8th overall? Or, I mean, is that kind of a pipe dream?
The Packers love reclamation projects, right? And they love to bring guys that they were high on when they came out of the draft, and maybe haven't really gotten to the level that they expected them to, and they like to bring them in and see if we can unlock whatever the issue is here with him. And he certainly has all the physical tools, right? I mean, he's a freak of nature, a guy his size and how he can run and move and everything. The Giants really kind of did him dirty, and he alluded to that in that interview. I don't know what they were thinking over there. Probably the same thing they were thinking when they let Xavier McKinney go for nothing.
and Saquon Barkley the same year.
Yeah, exactly.
Not looking great over there.
Not smart moves going on over there at the Giants Stadium. So, that's something that you can be hopeful about. Hopeful that the Packers find whatever it is, and they find his right position. He talked about, they're letting me focus on linebacker and not putting me at safety, not putting me out in the slot, not putting me outside corner, where he played pretty much everywhere. Very few snaps, he played everywhere for the Giants. They had him all over the place, so he couldn't focus on one thing. So he seems very happy about that, and he seems very happy about Hafley and his discussions with him, and that's the reason why he came to Green Bay. I have a feeling that he kind of assured him that, look, we want you to be this position, and we're going to let you focus on this position, and that's probably why he ended up coming here. So it's all hope and dreams at this point, but it's good to be optimistic about that.
Yeah. I mean, he's a hell of an athlete, and he's not old, so no injury history either, I don't believe, right? Not notable.
No.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about Isaiah Simmons. I get pretty excited about that because, again, a team took him 8th overall for a reason. There's certainly been plenty of busts in the history of the NFL, and there's stories behind all of them, but that one, he definitely seems like he's still got all that potential left to contribute. I mean, do you think so, Tim? What do you think when you hear Isaiah Simmons' comments? The same thing?
Yeah, I think it was pretty cool to hear him say that they're keeping him in one spot. He thinks that fits him better than where he's been with the Cardinals and the Giants, where they were moving him all over and he just couldn't really focus on one position. I think it makes sense to do that. I don't know why the Giants or the Cardinals didn't do that to begin with, but yeah, I mean, who knows? You never say never. He's got to make the team first, right? Like, he doesn't even have his roster spot's not even guaranteed or anything like that, but certainly you never know. He could be one of those guys that comes in and surprises because he can just go out there and play linebacker, and you put him in one spot and say, this is where you go and this is what you do. And it turns him loose. Like, it's less thinking and more playing for him, more natural for him to play one spot. So yeah, it's going to be interesting when Quay Walker comes back, hopefully at the start of training camp, because he'll obviously take the first team reps with Cooper, and then does Simmons get any of the, number 3 linebacker reps, or is that strictly McDuffie? Is Tyron Hopper ahead of him? Like, it'll be interesting to see how that starts to shake out. But, if Simmons can make an impact on special teams, because that's where he's going to have to make the team's special teams, then I think there's a possibility that he has a role at some point on the defense, just because of how special he is as an athlete.
Yeah, I got to believe they're trying to take advantage of that somehow. And I think, the one common thing that most Packers fans can agree on right now is you want to see the pass rush improve. So as we're talking about these guys that could be making an impact, I'm wondering, where does that pass rush improvement come from? Do we see a Rashawn Gary come more alive? And let's frame it this way. And Al, you let me know if we're going too long on you, but who do you think is more likely, if you just have to pick one, to have the impact pass rusher season that you really want them to have, expect them to have, Rashawn Gary or LVN?
It's got to be Gary, because LVN has not shown us yet that he can do it, right? He's one that's full of hopes and dreams as well, right? Lucas Van Ness, but right. Gary, at least, has shown it. He hasn't been as consistent, maybe, as we would all like, for a pick of how high he was picked in the first round. But he has his bursts of games where he's just totally dominant. He's another guy that if he can be more consistent with that, then that helps the defense tremendously. But I can't give a lot of optimism towards Lucas Van Ness until I see a little more from him on the field. Yeah.
I mean, the seat's getting hot, I feel like, for that guy. I kind of feel bad for him. Like, I'm ready to give him more of the benefit of the doubt just because his nickname's Hercules. Like,
he's got to show. He's got to show something.
He does. He really does. You got to earn that nickname Hercules, man. I feel like these NFL players shouldn't be throwing that around lightly.
Baron Sorrell is coming for him.
Hey, he might be. He's my I think if we're starting
Kind
to
of
talk
flew
about
under the
rookies we're going
radar
to keep an
there.
eye on that aren't named Golden, that Barron Sorrell is my guy. I want to
Yeah.
see him excel. And the fact that all of the UT players that were asked about who they would want to come into the NFL with them all said him. That like really stood out to me.
Really? Wow.
Had you heard that?
No, I hadn't.
Yeah, so I guess that was a common question, and I think the Packers specifically commented on this, that they asked other UT players, which of your teammates you would want to play with you in the NFL on the same team, and they all said Barron Sorrell, all of them. So I thought that was pretty cool, man. That speaks volumes about a guy and just who he is in the weight room, the film room, and all that. So yeah. I'm pretty excited about that. Tim, who's the guy? Is there somebody, are you rooting do you see LVN coming through, or do you see Gary finally coming through? Like, which one's your racehorse here?
So I trust Gary more than I trust Van Ness, just because we haven't seen it from Van Ness. Like, he didn't do anything in year 2 to make me think that the breakout's coming in year 3. Hopefully it is, because that can make the pass rush so much better. But I would choose the third option, which would be Devontae Wyatt, because I think if he breaks out, and we've at least seen some signs of that last year before he hurt his ankle, like that he could be that force inside, that gives you an interior pass rusher. And I think the potential is there. It's just consistency and health with him. And that can open up your edge rushers as well. I don't see this defense, like the pass rush as they are right now. And I don't think they have a 15 sack guy on the roster. Like, there's no Micah Parsons or Myles Garrett that's going to put up, or Trey Hendrickson that's going to put up a lot of sacks. I think it's going to have to be spread out. So, like, you're going to need Gary, you're going to need Kenny Clark to bounce back, Wyatt, and then hopefully if we get anything from Sorrell, or if Van Ness can progress, Brenton Cox, who we're not even talking about, like whoever it may be, they're just going to have to spread out the pass rush and just be more consistent. Because when we saw them last year, they were really good against, Tennessee and Seattle and some of the bad offensive lines. But when they faced Philly and then they faced Detroit, like, they weren't getting a sniff of the quarterback. And you can't be so up and down week to week like they were. You need consistency. And I think it's going to have to be, I know it's cliche, but it's going to have to be everybody, because they don't have that game breaker pass rusher. There's no prime Clay Matthews right now. I think Gary's the closest thing they have, but I don't think he can do it alone. Like, they need more contributions.
Yeah. So, I mean, and it seems like a common philosophy, I guess we could call it. We talked a little bit about this before, but they're taking that approach with multiple positions, right? You can't get them pinned down to a receiver one. We have 8 receiver ones now? Isn't that the joke? And you got multiple tight ends.
Actually.
What's that?
I don't know how many wide receivers we have. It's
over
10.
It's definitely over 10. Excuse me. Well, and now that Bo Melton went to corner, maybe we're at
-1, right? Yeah, maybe -1.
So that's another one we need to bring up here, Tim. We didn't get to talk about this last week because it hadn't happened yet. So Bo Melton moving to corner, is this a sign of him getting released, or does he have a shot to make this roster as a corner?
I think he has a chance to make the roster as number 1, a special teams player, and then number 2 is like a two-way guy that they're given a chance to show that he can be more valuable. Like, I don't think he's got that great of a chance to make it purely at receiver right now, and this move is kind of showing you that. But if he can do a little bit of everything, particularly on special teams, then he's got a chance to make the roster and then like develop potentially at cornerback down the line, behind the scenes in practice, but he's got to be able to do it on special teams. I think there was a lot made of this move, and it was just the timing of it, because it came right after they released Jair and everybody went nuts. Oh, you released Jair and your new cornerback's Bo Melton now. And it's like, it's not related really. It's more so like Jair's not there. A couple other guys, Kalen King's has a cast on his arm, whatever that is. Like, they were running low on guys. Yeah. And I guess they've looked at and thought about this before, according to LaFleur. Like, since Melton got there, they've talked about it behind the scenes, which is interesting.
I didn't know that. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, he had mentioned it apparently to Melton when they got him. They picked him up from Seattle. Like, you ever played cornerback before? And he hasn't really, or apparently at Rutgers he did in practice, but never in games or anything. So, and maybe it's been a possibility, but it's just not something that we've actually seen on the field out in the open like we did at minicamp. We'll see if he's still there at training camp, and if he is, and he continues to practice at cornerback, then it'll be something interesting to look at. But I think like I said, I think he's got to make it as a special teams player, number one, and then we'll see what his actual role is, whether it's more receiver, more cornerback. But yeah, I mean, by them drafting 2 receivers, it's a lot tougher for him to make the team just being a wide receiver.
Yeah, I took that as a sign that he lost out to Heath.
Yeah, that's what I said right after the draft. I said, well, this is bye-bye Bo time, because he just was not going to make this team as a receiver. So, anything he can do to make himself more valuable, and more available, why not try it? So I can see why he agreed to give it a shot, because he's not going to make the team just as a wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be the message. But, I mean, the interesting thing, and I can't remember who it was, but other players, when they were asked about it, said that he actually looked okay. He looked like he was kind of hanging with it. So
he has a nice back pedal. They showed that. I saw a little video on Twitter, and he looked like he knew what he was doing, backpedaling and turning.
Yeah,
actually looked better than the other 2 cornerbacks that he was running with. Of course, they were bottom of the roster guys, but still.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm pretty intrigued. I know that the Packers, they value their athleticism. I think that there's a lot of moves. Obviously, we're talking about Isaiah Simmons too. They really do value that athleticism, and I'm glad they're giving him the shot, because he's an exceptional athlete. Obviously his brother plays the position. I don't know that necessarily means that he should be able to play the position, but it doesn't seem like it's very foreign to him. So that's a good thing. And his timing's good, right? Jair's gone. They need depth. Training camp's around the corner. I think the opportunity is his. And Kalen King's in a cast too. That's another one. I don't think this is a good time for him to be in a cast. I don't think he can afford that at all. But yeah, it's going to be a competitive training camp for these DBs.
I'm sorry, they haven't said why he's in a cast, have they?
I haven't heard.
Yeah,
no, I don't think so.
No, and there's the cornerback room is really interesting. I'm not nearly as nervous, I don't think, as the average Packer fan about the cornerback room. I got a lot of faith in Carrington Valentine. I was a big Jair fan, so I was not happy to see him go. Very grateful to have gotten some fun years with him. But I'm kind of optimistic that this group can get it done. And it, again, kind of back to the point of like this philosophy of position by committee, it seems to be like they're doing that across the board. You've got a lot of corners involved in a lot of ways. Who's going to play in the slot? A lot of guys can. You've got a lot of interesting movement at the safety position, because Evan Williams is good, but Bullard's not going away quietly, and there's still some decent depth behind those guys. And then the defensive line, I think, is going to be a huge question mark. I've been particularly optimistic that the addition of the new D-line coach will make a big difference. Al, how much stock do you put in that?
Well, not as much probably as you do, judging from your optimism.
Okay.
Sorry, I have to get that in there.
I love it.
It's hard for me to be overly optimistic about that. We've read good things about him, right? So far, LaFleur has praised him. And one thing I did like is that they said one thing they're focusing on is getting off the ball faster, really attacking once the ball is snapped. And that certainly falls into Hafley's philosophy of attack. So I like the sound of that. Whether he can transform these players, in one season, I'm not sure about that. But I hope that he can.
Well, and I guess my optimism comes from, I don't know that how much transforming needs to be done, is maybe like How much damage was done by the last D-line coach? Because Hafley wasn't even willing to acknowledge him when asked about it, and it just seems interesting to me how quickly they got him out the door, how much they're not acknowledging his existence anymore, and how they're very excited about the new coach. So I mean, do you feel like maybe that last coach did some damage? Did he like try to get guys to do something they're not comfortable doing? Do you put any stock in that?
I mean, without more details from Hafley, which we're not going to get, it's really hard to say. He might have been teaching certain techniques that maybe Hafley wasn't a big fan of. That could be it. Maybe he didn't like the way he interacted with the players. That could be it. Maybe he didn't think that he motivated them enough. So it could be a lot of things, but without Hafley spilling the beans, we're not going to know.
We're not going to know. That's true. So, but that's what makes me a little bit more optimistic. That problem solved. So all the D linemen are good again. So that's fine.
Problem solved. I'll go with that. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We're talking about how bright the future can be. So the D line totally solved. All of them going to be great, including our friend Nazir Stackhouse, who we did get to say, "Go Pack, go." I'll show a little clip here from Nazir Stackhouse at the Shrine Bowl before he knew he was going to be a Packer.
The hardest right now, from what I could think of, that was the hardest thing I've ever done.
Even harder than training camp.
Yeah,
Come on,
yeah.
man.
It's football. Like, if you love football, training camp ain't hard.
Last thing. Can I get Go Pack, go out of you?
Go Pack, go, man.
There we go. We got him. He said, "Go Pack, go," before he was even a Packer. We know that he belongs. So yeah. So D line, Nazir's going to come in there, and these Georgia dudes, they're all going to get together and recreate what Philly did. So yeah, D line problems are solved. But the O line could also be. There's a lot of question marks there. I don't know, Al. How many of these problems do you want to solve tonight? Is it getting a little bit late?
Well, actually, you guys are breaking up on me a little bit here, so I think this might be a good time to
okay.
My exit here. But I appreciate you guys having me on and getting to talk a little bit about Packers, and you have a good conversation going in the chat here. Talk it up with those.
Our chatters are usually pretty good. We got some smart Packer fans in the chat.
Yeah, you've got some good comments in there, so good to see that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
thank you so much for joining us, Al. Taking the time tonight. I really appreciate it, and thank you for sparking this fire, creating this mess we've got here.
No problem, guys.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much.
All right, have a good one, Al.
Yep.
All right, so the famous Jersey Al, we appreciate him joining us this evening. And for those that are so curious, he got us together almost 3 years ago now, and helped get this podcast started, and here we go. We're hopefully we have hundreds more. How bright the future can be, who knows? We got a lot of podcasts ahead of us, Tim.
Let's hope. Yeah. It's thankful to Jersey Al. Like that's
Yes,
the guy
sir.
that put us together, gave us the chance. So appreciate him jumping on, and appreciate his support throughout 100 episodes now.
Absolutely.
And if you don't like it, complain to him.
If you have any complaints, do not direct them at us at all. It's not our fault. We're having some fun, but you guys in the chat, I can't keep up, and I'm not even going to try to go back and read what you got going on. But I know you guys all have usually have some pretty good perspectives and takes. I do see one of our buddies here, Rev Trev. Congrats on 100 episodes. Question is, what's your expectations for our rush game this year? Better or worse than last year? So we haven't really touched much on the offense tonight, especially the run game. Appreciate you for joining us, Rev. As always, man, great having you around. Great to he's a hardcore Packer fan. You guys need to check out Rev Trev on Twitter and YouTube. He's an excellent dude, top-notch human there. But yeah, so I think those are some solid questions. Tim, what do you think? Can the run game get better?
Yeah, I think it can. I don't know. So this is kind of like sitting on the fence here, I guess. But I don't know if statistically it'll be better, though I think it can. I just think it's going to look and function better. potentially, because I think they have better fits for what they want to do in a running game, right? This isn't like the outside zone scheme that LaFleur came in with. They want to be more power. They want to be more downhill, especially with Jacobs in there. And I think no Josh Myers, you're replacing him with Aaron Banks at left guard, moving Elgton Jenkins to center. I think it gives your running game a big boost. I think it fits the scheme much better than having Josh Myers in there, right? And there were too many times last year, as good as Josh Jacobs was, he was awesome, but he was making too many of those yards on his own where he was getting hit behind or at the line of scrimmage, breaking tackles. It's one thing to break them when you're 10 yards downfield. We saw him do that, but it's another thing to be doing it a lot at or behind the line of scrimmage, and there was too much of that. So he was awesome last year. That free agent signing, both Jacobs and McKinney, incredible, right? Like they've earned every penny they made. And Jacobs, for the tone that he sets for the offense, for the football team, is worth it right there. Great
Totally
running
agree.
back. I'm such a huge fan of what Jacobs has brought to the team. But like they can make it a lot easier on Jacobs. And I think that's the goal. And that was what they were thinking, bringing in Banks, because he fits it a little bit more. He's a bigger body. He's a more physical guy. And obviously Myers, we've talked about Myers plenty on our 100 episodes. He wasn't good enough, and you're replacing him with a much better center in Elgton Jenkins. So yeah, I think the running game can get better. And we haven't talked, my answer's getting long here, but they got depth at running back, right? Manuel Wilson.
They really do.
Right. Wilson and Brooks last year were damn good. What a fine Brooks was. Shout out to their, Goody and the pro personnel team picking him up off the Dolphins when they cut him down last year. Those guys were damn running backs for him. And now you're going to bring in healthy at this point, Marshawn Lloyd, who everybody raved about, but he just got hurt in the preseason. And then he got hurt in the regular season. We only saw him for one game, right? So I know everybody's like, oh, he got hurt. They're already counting him out like he's going to face that the rest of his career. We don't know that. The dude's got a ton of ability. Like he's one of the guys that I'm most excited to see in preseason is what Marshawn Lloyd can bring, and just the I don't want to say change of pace, because he's not just a smaller like scat back, but he can catch the ball. He can do a lot of different things out of the backfield. So like they're deep at running back, and adding Aaron Banks to the offensive line, moving Jenkins to center, I think I think their offensive line, their running game, go back to the question, the running game can get much better.
I don't know if I lost you there, Tim. But yeah, I agree, man. I think there's a lot to like about this running game, the depth that they've got, not only in the running back room, but along the O-line. You've got to be excited about how much better the depth is on this O-line this time, or this year than this time last year. And I think we were trying to talk ourselves into the depth last year. I was a Jacob Monk fan, still a Jacob Monk fan, and then there was the Reclamation Project, and then, a couple of guys. I really feel a lot better about the depth actually now than we did then. And I don't think there's a whole lot of talking myself into it involved. It's more of like, man, the best five isn't exactly obvious, right? Maybe, there's a surface level to it. There's maybe a first five that are kind of obvious, but I'm not going to bet all my money that that's who actually is the best five. I think that there's room for probably 7 different guys to be in that group. And so if the O-line does better and Josh Jacobs isn't getting hit behind the line of scrimmage, he's hitting guys on the other side of the line of scrimmage. Absolutely. I like the ability for this running game to improve this season. And I think I agree. I think, what you said about maybe not statistically, but, situationally is maybe a better way to put it. Hopefully we get a chance to see some of that come to fruition, but you've got the tools for it. If you're LaFleur, and you've got the tools for every situation at this point, even probably on the offensive line. There's probably guys, if you need guys that can move a little quicker in certain situations, you've got that. Now I know the idea is to find that best five and to keep those best five as consistent as possible, but you've got a lot of flexibility with this O-line group and these running backs and the tools that you have. And then the way that some of these receivers fit into that also with jet motions and things, there's a lot of tools, the tight ends too. So I think that the potential this year, and I got to go back to some of the top here of our comments with our friend Michael, possible top 5 in defense and offense. I agree with that. I think you're seriously looking at a potential top 5 offense, assuming people stay healthy, which is obviously a pretty rare thing in the NFL. But I also believe the top 5 defense is definitely within reach just by improvement from year to year. You know, Quay Walker getting better in this system, Edgerrin Cooper getting better. Obviously, a lot of people are really high on him. The consistency and leadership of Xavier McKinney. I think that there's naturally going to be an improvement across the D line. How drastic is that? We'll find out. But, you know, yeah, I think you're definitely looking at a lot of reasons why this defense should get better this year, which should lead to a top 5, I think, if you're getting better. And then, you know, the pass rush obviously has to come to fruition, which we've already talked a little bit about. But yeah, man, I'm optimistic that all of these things can improve. And I think that really the theme that maybe we're sort of circling around is the harmony of how this team operates. You know, the defense being in its second year in Hafley's system is going to have a better rhythm to it, a better harmony to it. They're going to be able to get a little bit more creative with things because they're not going to be needing to spend as much time on the fundamentals. Excuse me. Got to catch up to my tongue here because they've done that, right? They've gotten the year of the fundamentals. They figured out the system. Now they can kind of get cute with it. Same on the offense, right? You're several years into LaFleur's system. There shouldn't be a lot of new things here. It should be more like, how do you make this work better with this? How do you make this work better with this? And create that harmony of a system that a defense just can't beat, right? You know, if you're going to stop this, we're going to throw that. If you're going to stop that, we're going to throw this, you know, and you can, you know, set things up and bait them. So I think that's where my optimism is really rooted from, is just sort of the growth that should happen around this team. I think that's hard to quantify, but definitely something that I think it's got huge potential. Let's see here. We got a first-time listener coming in here, Bazarowski. Appreciate you. Or did I say that, Bazarowski? Man, I'm sorry. Well, you're on there, and I don't trust my tongue at this point tonight anyway. I'm stumbling over all my words, but I appreciate you joining us. It says, hey, fellas, first time tuning in. Do we think there is a chance Morgan wins the left tackle job and Sheed is traded? So I'll actually bat the second part of that question first. I think if Morgan wins the left tackle job, I think you keep Sheed as your backup plan as best you can, unless somebody comes along with a package that you just have to take. I don't know. Am I off base on that one, Tim?
No, I agree with you. I don't go trading. Rasheed Walker should be a starting left tackle somewhere in the NFL. If it's not, you know, if Morgan beats him out, he should be somewhere. Like, he's better than a lot of left tackles, but that's too valuable to like go and trade away at this point. Because
it's kind of like Malik Willis.
You're one injury away. Like, yeah, if you could get a draft pick for him, sure, but that draft pick ain't helping you in 2025. Like, keep him. True. And it would suck for Rasheed Walker because he's going into the last year of his contract. He's going to want to get paid. And if he's even, whatever you think of Rasheed Walker, he's at least a league average. I think he's better than league average, but I'm saying, even if you think he's a league average left tackle, he's going to get paid a lot of money as a free agent. Like, they get paid. And I think he's above average. So he's going to get paid. Like, if he gets beaten out by Morgan, yeah, that's going to suck for him. But I think as an organization, the Packers should just bite the bullet, and you got to keep him and somehow make him happy. But yeah, if Morgan wins it, Rasheed Walker's my swing tackle. Like, I'm not trading him for a future draft pick because you need depth, and it's especially in offensive line. Like, you have 5 starters, somebody's going to get hurt. And I know they were healthy last year, but we saw, you know, when Elton Jenkins went down in the playoff game, what happened? Because then they had to turn to Kadeem Telford and Travis Glover, and those guys.
It did not work out well.
It did not work well. I mean, it might not have worked out well anyway, going up against that Eagle defensive line, but it didn't work out. So to get through a full season with the same 5 guys is going to be incredibly tough to do. And if you have a Rasheed Walker sitting there that you could turn to if one of your tackles gets hurt, or if a guard gets hurt and you have to kick Morgan inside, that's incredibly valuable. So I think it's possible Morgan wins that job. I don't think they trade Walker unless Walker just comes to him and his agent and they request a trade, and maybe it gets ugly or something like that, where they got to move him out. But I agree. I think the first part can happen. The second part, I don't think there's a high probability of him being traded.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that the Packers showed you that with Malik Willis. They learned that lesson. And if you really want to get specific with, what they've learned over the last few years, right? Not even just last year, but, what they went through with Bakhtiari, right? Him going down in 2020, or is it 2021? So I think it's 2021. That when he went down in the playoffs, and you had a Super Bowl trajectory at that point, and then you lose that guy, and it all kind of the wheels fall off, So I think they've seen and learned how important that depth and quality is at O-line, especially in crunch time at the end of the season. So yeah, I agree. I do think now let's throw around the first part of this question. Do you think there's a chance Morgan wins the left tackle job? Absolutely, I do. I don't know if it's like more than a 50% chance, but it's not zero. For sure, not zero. I don't know. I'd give it close to a 50% chance, because he's a first-round pick, and he's a guy that we were talking about early in the draft process as a good fit for the Packers, and he looked good, So that's a guy that you expect to develop. He should have a little bit more muscle, a little bit more size to him now with one full NFL offseason. She's good. He's above average, but the potential of Morgan should be better than that. So yeah, if he plays well, stays healthy in training camp, I definitely think he gives Sheed a run for his money at left tackle.
I do too. Yeah, I do too. And I think even if Rasheed Walker wins it opening day, I think Morgan then is your swing guy, and the potential is there for him at some point in 2025 to take over, whether that's through injury or performance or whatever. But yeah, I think Morgan's going to give him as long as they keep him there for most of his reps in training camp at left tackle, I think he's going to give him a run for the money to win that job.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that's good. That's the kind of competition we want to see. When you've got a guy on your O-line who's good and above average, and you can almost certainly guarantee he's going to get a competition for his job in training camp, he's either going to earn it by being better, or the other guy is going to be better. So that position should upgrade. At the very least, it won't get worse. So I think that's good for this whole O-line. And I think that's what's really going to make this O-line much better, is the amount of competition that exists across the board. There's Zach Tom and Elgin Jenkins and maybe Aaron Banks, because of his price tag, are probably the only 3 that are pretty safe starters. And where, Zach Tom seems pretty certain at right tackle. Elgin Jenkins, is he going to center? What are we doing with that? Where's he going to end up? And, does Banks play left guard, right guard? He's kind of in the shuffle there. So I think it's going to be interesting, but the amount of competition is definitely going to lead to a better version of the offensive line for the Packers. So I think that's almost a certainty. And the amount of depth that you have hopefully helps you stay there. Now, I want to get to, one of these comments that's a little bit more of a grounding comment, although I did say that we were bringing optimism to this episode. Our Showers. You cannot have a top 5 defense with our pass rushing cornerbacks. Marginal there until proven otherwise. Fair enough. But we can have a top 5 defense with these guys, or a better version of them, right? So first of all, we know that the corners got better because everybody said that Jair Alexander never played football. So if he never played football, all they did was subtract Stokes and add Hobbs. They got better. How much better remains to be seen, but the safeties are pretty darn good too. When you have good safeties over the top, that makes cornerbacks' life a little better, makes them look a little better. It's good. But the pass rush also, if that gets better, that makes the cornerbacks better. So all these things, man, they snowball on each other. So you can't say, well, we cannot have them. But marginal there until proven otherwise, that's fair. Am I wrong? Am I out of line? Is that fair?
I mean, I think statistically, weren't they a top 10 defense last year with those guys, at cornerback and pass rusher?
They were.
The number one concern with me for this football team since during the season, certainly since it ended, was the pass rush, and it continues to be. And I'm skeptical that they've fixed it enough, right? So I'm with you, with R who posted that. I'm concerned about the pass rush, but I think at cornerback, I think they're going to be okay. Like you said it, we've talked about it. Like Stokes isn't here. You're much better with Hobbs than you were with Stokes. Jaire
Stokes was a flat-out liability, man. Like there were points that he needed to not be on the field.
Right, and if we didn't have Jaire for most of last season anyway, so you're returning guys that were already your corners as it is, but you're upgrading from Stokes to Hobbs, and I feel pretty good. I'm really excited to see Hobbs. I think they're going to find something there. I think they got a player that some Packer fans are just really underestimating. I think he's going to be a pretty solid starter for them. But between Hobbs, Valentine, and Nixon, I think the top three are okay. Yeah, I would like another corner there for depth. Maybe that guy still, is out. You
got Bo Melton, remember?
Right. Well, right. How could I forget? Cornerback 1, Bo Melton. I mean, Preston Smith's available. He could come in and play corner again.
Hey, he has a good resume.
Yeah, he's been our corner before. He's proven it. But there's still a guy that can shake loose, whether that's before camp, during camp, a cut down, like a depth guy is what they need, or maybe one of the, young guys, or a couple of the young guys step up. That could happen as well. So maybe the depth is overblown as well. But I would like a depth corner, but I'm fine with the top three guys. The pass rush. Yeah, it remains to be seen what they have there, but we saw them as a top 10 defense last year with an inconsistent pass rush. So I believe in Jeff Hafley. And I'm also conditioned. I've been burned enough times by Packer defenses over the years that I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, they're going to be a top 5 defense. Like I'll believe it when I see it kind of person with the defense, just because I have too many past nightmares and scars from this defense. Yeah, but I'm optimistic about it. So I'm ready to get hurt again.
Nightmares about 4th and 26. It's 20 years ago. Over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, that hurt a little bit, I had one of my best friends was an Eagles fan. I had to face that at school the next day.
Dude, I live in the area.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot who I was talking to. That's funny. Hey, but you got vindication in the Super Bowl run, man. Taking down that Vic Eagles team. That was nice. That was a good little
sweet
full circle that we got there. That made up for 4th and 26, I felt like.
Yeah. But now I'm hearing about the tush push. I don't.
Yeah, we're not even gonna. I'm over the tush push.
Yeah,
we don't need to waste time on that. Now back to football. R Showers had a good comment here. If you don't have the ends, then let's blitz our speed freak linebackers. That is where my head is at. Now, just imagine a world where you got Devontae Wyatt getting some nice penetration up the middle with Kenny Clark next to him, and then you got Isaiah Simmons firing right behind him with Edge Cooper there. Man, you got missiles coming right up the middle. Anybody on the outside is going to be fine. They're going to be all right. They're going to make it. That's why I think the rhythm and harmony of the whole system could really maybe – what is it? You make the whole greater than the sum of the parts. Am I saying that right?
Sure.
Something like that.
Sounds good.
It sounds good. So yeah, I agree with that. Like if you got freak athletes at linebacker, I don't care if they're outside or inside, send them. They will be tough to block. So
I agree with that. And that kind of goes back to my earlier point with Al, was like, I think this is a defense, as far as a pass rush goes, it's going to have to be spread out. Like they don't have that mega star that's going to just terrorize quarterbacks, like it's going to have to be a bunch of guys. And that can include, we saw Adrian Cooper at times last year. We've actually seen Quay rush a decent amount, do okay at times with it. So those two guys, maybe it's Simmons, whatever, but sure, fire the linebackers. Whoever can get home to the quarterback, I don't care. Just get home and get the quarterback on the ground.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, play mind games with the center. I would love to see Isaiah Simmons versus center. Please give me that. If you're listening, Hafley, please. Let me see Isaiah Simmons versus center. I don't care who the center is. Let me see that. That could be a lot of fun. Yeah, so we had a lot of fun here on this with this 100th episode, Tim. Let's have a little bit of memory lane, a little reflection. What do you have any highlights and that stand out for you as your favorite moments on our 100 episodes to choose from?
Wow. The first, I always remember the first one was Musgrave Mania, right? We were falling in love with Luke Musgrave, and we've been hurt so far by that, but not giving up on Luke yet. And just the late season Jordan Love run of our first season, 2023, where he got hot and just started annihilating people. Just going through that week to week, talking about how great he was playing and how the team was coming around and responding after, such a rough first half of that season. That was a lot of fun. And then I can laugh at it now, but I think our biggest disagreement was earlier this spring where we got into it pretty heavy about Jair. So we don't always agree, but that one was the only one where it's been kind of voices raised a little bit.
I liked that, man. I thought that was we both had some good points that needed to be put on the table. But look at this. Our shout. Tim never smiled until the 60-second episode.
Not true. I smiled from day one because I'm lucky to be doing this. So what I said my memories. What are yours?
Well, Chris the Casual In says 100 and counting. Y'all, appreciate you, Chris. Wanted to get you in there. You've seen and been with us for a few of these, as well as our showers. And
thank you.
I know our buddy Matthew Tan is up there too. I can't dig through the comments to find his, but always appreciate when he joins us. No, I really did enjoy our debate about Jair. I felt like that was something that was much needed for Packers Twitter. I wish more could have participated in that. But no, what's been fun is, we started this thing in Jordan Love's first season, so it's kind of cool that we'll get his first season as a starter, I should be clear. But it's kind of neat that we'll get a little bit of a full documentation, hopefully, of his career as he goes through and how that evolves. But no, man, just it's been fun every Monday, sitting down to think about, all right, man, what are Tim and I going to get into here? What do we got to cover? What does Packers Twitter need to be solving? Sometimes Packers Twitter comes up with some of the content that we go through here, but I can't pinpoint anything specifically. It's been fun. It's been cool to cover these games, and I hope we have hundreds more.
Here. Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to be able to get on here and talk and have somebody to win or lose to voice our opinions, and people actually want to listen to us and join in on it. It's so cool.
Well, there's over 100 of them right now. You guys are nuts. It's late. What are y'all doing? I can't believe that. But no, it's been a lot of fun. And y'all in the comments, y'all are awesome. You guys are brilliant. You guys got some great perspectives. Always coming in with some good counterpoints. We even got a couple trolls in there. We won't give the trolls too much attention, but we do appreciate the trolls. Bears fans, Vikings fans, Lions fans, all welcome. Come on, bring your trash talk. We'll shut it down. But definitely appreciate the subscribers, the listeners. You guys are amazing. It's been neat to do this. 100 episodes, 100th episode here of the Packers Weekly Podcast. And again, hopefully hundreds more, maybe thousands, Tim. Who knows where this thing is going? We'll find out. But I am going to let a Packer sign us off on this evening here, this 100th episode. We're going to bring back Sir Nazir Stackhouse.
What I could think of, that was the hardest thing.
To sign us off of this
Even
episode.
harder than training camp.
Yeah,
Come on,
man. It's football. Like, you love football. Training camp ain't hard.
Last thing. Can I get Go Pack Go out of you?
Go Pack, go, man.
There we go. Go Pack, go Packers fans, and we will see y'all